This is KPRN-DB, broadcasting worldwide from southeast Oklahoma, USA, to parts unknown.
The new Be Prepared for Christmas package from Sun Ovens contains everything you need to harness the power of the sun for cooking, water, and dehydrating. The perfect gift for the preppers or outdoor enthusiast on your shopping list. A sun oven uses the sun's power to bake, boil, or steam food, heat water for purification or personal hygiene, or solar dehydrate. When you use the sun's power on sunny days, you preserve your fuel storage for rainy days. Sun-baked foods retain moisture, have less shrinkage, and do not burn. Sun-baked roasts are tastier and more succulent, and sun-baked bread has unparalleled taste and texture. The new Be Prepared for Christmas package lets you roast an 18-pound turkey. For the past 26 years, Sun Ovens has been proudly made in the U.S., are durable, and have a long life and come with a 100% satisfaction guarantee. Don't be fooled by cheap imitations. For a discount coupon, visit sunoven.com/podcast. That's sunoven.com/podcast.
Have you ever wanted to generate your own supply of electrical power, even save money on your electric bill? If so, this is going to be the most important message you will ever hear. Solar power generators are now available. These emergency backup systems provide life-saving electrical power when you need it most. Unlike gas generators, a solar generator runs quietly, emits no fumes, and produces electricity from the sun. It's like having an electric power plant running quietly in your own home. Run sump pumps, shortwave radios, computers, and even keep your food from spoiling. Whether it's hurricanes, ice storms, brownouts, or blackouts, you'll never suffer through painful power outages again. And here's the best news. A remarkable fall truckload sale going on right now that gets you $1,700 in bonuses when you buy a solar generator. To find out why solar generators are the best generators and get $1,700 for doing so, go to falltruckloadsale.com. That's falltruckloadsale.com. Generate your own supply of electricity. Go to falltruckloadsale.com. That's falltruckloadsale.com.
Feeling like there are too many pressures and demands on you? Losing sleep, worrying about tests and schoolwork? Eating on the run because your schedule is just too busy? You may be under too much stress, and it may be affecting your mind. Get your mental edge back with Nootropic Mind Power from MindRegard.com. Nootropic Mind Power is not a drug, but a natural supplement. Its 12 powerful ingredients are natural and non-GMO, plus it's gluten-free, wheat-free, and formulated by Americans for Americans by an NSF-certified laboratory. Nootropic Mind Power is available at MindRegard.com, spelled MindRegard.com, and comes with a 100% money-back guarantee. Free your mind with Nootropic Mind Power Cognitive Supplement from MindRegard.com. MindRegard. Clearly see tomorrow and yesterday. Today.
And with winter comes dangerous driving conditions. Get your vehicle ready for bad weather by getting it serviced as soon as possible. Prepare for emergencies by packing food, water, warm clothes, and weather-appropriate shoes or boots. Don't forget to check the spare to make sure it's usable. Stay informed on bad weather, dangerous driving events by visiting prepperpodcast.com. When Christmas comes, you don't want your family to stare at an empty chair.
The truth is out there. Knowledge is power. This is the Prepper Podcast Radio Network.
America, welcome once again to Soul Survivor Radio. This is the pastor with you, coming to you live, well, in this case, recorded from 1 second after territory in the Blue Ridge Mountains of North Carolina. Hope you've had a good week. Hope you had a good Thanksgiving. I do apologize for having to use recorded broadcasts last week, but I was a little under the weather and just was not able to complete a recorded broadcast. But we are back. We are healthy, thank the Lord. And I hope you have had a great Thanksgiving. I hope you're looking forward to a very blessed Christmas. As we look ahead, we are dealing with some very touchy financial ground. We are definitely on a slippery slope here in America. and most states are as well, not to mention us as a nation. So with that, we know, all of us in the prepping world realize that we are facing a potential financial calamity, collapse, mishap, whatever you may want to call it. In either case, things do not look good financially for America. Now, as we analyze this, there are plenty of talking heads and so-called experts out there. I'm not convinced any of them have any type of a scenario that they are confident with putting forth. What I'm saying is I believe they're all blowing smoke to some degree or another. Simply put, they either know how bleak the outlook is and none of them want to really share it, or they don't really know what to tell us, and they're trying to keep panic down. What will happen if our fears come to fruition in America? What will happen if and when the economy does collapse? That has been debated, talked about. There are people much more qualified than I to discuss that. There is an area, though, that hasn't gotten a lot of attention, and I want to spend today's broadcast talking with you about it. I do want to ask for your cooperation, for your input in these matters. Email me, prepperspastor@frontier.com. prepperspastor@frontier.com. Anytime during the course of the broadcast, anytime during the week prior to the broadcast, if you have a comment, a question, a concern, send it to me. I would love to hear from you. Also, I would like to take time to thank the fine folks at Preppers Podcast Radio Network. They do a terrific job putting these broadcasts together every week. You have no idea how much of a blessing you are to me. As I put these together, I have probably the easiest job, which is just trying to put together a topic and present it in some type of a sensible, orderly fashion. You take the programs that I send you, you put them into a broadcast form that can be sent out among all of the listeners, and we are thankful for every listener, every individual that's out there. We do appreciate you in ways that you have no idea. And I do want to encourage you to look at the fine sponsors that help us at PPRN and support them, because it is through their generosity that PPRN can stay on the air, and it is through the generosity and the courtesy of PPRN that Soul Survivor Radio and many other broadcasts can come to you. So we do appreciate each one of our listeners, each one of the sponsors at PPRN, and we thank you so much for the gifts, for the when I say gifts, I'm talking about the time, the effort, the actual concern that you put into what you do. It's not just a job. It's something that you take very seriously and very passionately, and it shows. And that is an encouragement to me. So thank you so much. Also, looking ahead for Soul Survivor Radio, as we get close to the 2013 broadcast year, we are developing a website, Soul Survivor Radio website, and that I hope to be bringing live by the first of the year. So we are looking, we are really interested in looking ahead to 2013, seeing what kind of changes we can put in, and if you have any recommendations, please send them. It's your broadcast. Those of you who listen, Soul Survivor Radio is for you. It is to help you. The only way I can do that is if I hear from you. So pass along your concerns, pass along your interest, and we will look seriously here at Soul Survivor Radio. And I do hope in the 2013 season to have guests on here with me. So if any of you listening out there know of someone who has a significant contribution to prepping, to Christianity, how it applies, any of the things that we talk about here on PPRN, and you think that they may be interested in being a guest with me here on Soul Survivor Radio, please, by all means, send me their contact information, or you contact me. Maybe you are another host of another program, and you would be interested in coming on Soul Survivor Radio and working with me for an episode or two to be a guest, or you'd like to recommend someone else. Please do so. These programs are about the listener, and I know that's not just my feelings, that's the feelings of all of the programs here on PPRN. These men and women who do these programs are a blessing to me. I thank each one of you. I'm thankful for you. You're all in my prayers. So let me ask you a question. In a collapse situation, have you ever thought about what Christianity would look like? What is the face of Christianity going to look like in a collapse situation? We've talked about how society would crumble. We have talked about how economics would fall apart, how we would be in a barter economy for at least a short period of time. How if things got bad enough, there would be looting and rioting and stealing. People would have to resort to very serious self-defense in order to keep property. But we haven't looked at the church. We haven't looked at the practice of Christianity during an end of the world as we know it scenario. Now, when I put this out there in front of you, I'm not talking about a rapture type situation. Let me give you the scenario. The economy collapses. We go into a complete bank shutdown. There's no currency left. Everything is either on a precious metal system, junk silver, or a barter system. Unemployment is skyrocketing at an all-time high. There's no or very little unemployment benefits available. Inflation and hyperinflation is going through the roof. Our worst thoughts financially are taking place. How does it, and now the rapture hasn't taken place. This is all a precursor to the rapture. But what does Christianity look like? How does all of this affect the church? And first of all, as we get into this, let's realize that whatever happens in the economy does affect the local church. It affects the local church in many ways. First of all, people cannot tithe and keep the church operating financially if they are not making money. Can you agree with me there? Does that make sense? Second of all, people can't attend church if they can't afford to buy the gasoline to put in their automobiles. Can you agree with that? I think most everyone can agree with those two things. Now, here is a third one. What happens when the church can't pay the pastor and the pastor says, okay, I'm out of here? You say, well, now, pastors shouldn't do that. You're right. They shouldn't, but they will. We live in a day and in an age where, unfortunately, a growing number of men and even women who are holding the office of pastor of local churches do so strictly because they see it as a career. They're always looking for opportunities to advance their career. So if they are pastoring a bivocational church, similar to what I do, where they have to work a full-time job and pastor a small congregation for a little, and they provide as much income as they can, and the rest is made up on a full-time job, some pastors are always looking for that first full-time pastorate opportunity where there's enough income to pay all the bills, and then there is a retirement program and a health insurance program. And when they have that, when they land that type of a pastorate, then they are looking for the next largest pastorate. Then they want to be in charge of a group of ministers, and they want to be the head over this, that, and the other. They're always looking for the next best opportunity, the next step up the proverbial ladder. Now, you may say that churches and pastors are not supposed to look that way, and they're not supposed to be like that. And I will agree with you wholeheartedly on these matters. But being in the pastorate, I can tell you these men and women exist. So what's going to happen in a collapse situation when the pastor can't get paid and suddenly he just says, well, hey, look, if y'all can't pay me, I'm going somewhere that will, and they're gone. So in a grid-down situation, when the economy collapses, let me give you my perception of what the church is going to look like. Now, it will not be this way everywhere, but I do believe the longer we stay in a situation, the more of this you will see. You will see people that will lose their jobs and they will not be able to tithe. So a lot of folks, because they can't tithe, they will be embarrassed and they won't come to church. They'll stay at home. You will see a lot of folks that will not be able to afford to come to church, maybe one trip a week because of gasoline, the cost and or availability of it. So attendance is going to drop. So what would be a typical 150 member attendance on Sunday morning may be 70, 75 members. Some churches, some of the smaller churches, may even close their doors entirely because there may not be anyone show up. Really, it may get that bad. People are going to be discouraged. They're going to be disheartened. They're going to feel as though God has abandoned them. People have the perception in America today that God owes us something because we are America. That's wrong. That's dead wrong. That very ideology is dangerous enough for us to have to go through a spiritual purging. When the membership falls away, the ones that do come, continue to come, they're going to be discouraged. So Christianity will go through a very discouraging stage. There's going to be people who are going to be out of food, and their attempts to come to the church for assistance are going to be increased many times. Some churches, the bigger ones, will be able to absorb this and will be able to help. A lot of the smaller ones who will suffer greatly during these times won't be able to help near as much. Now, Christianity is going to take a bit of a beating, to say the least, when these things happen. So what do we do? How do we plan? Well, as a pastor, here are some things that have gone through my mind, some strategy, if you will, so that when this happens, if I'm in a pulpit at that time and if I maintain a pastorate at that time, then here will be some of the things that I recommend. Provided the church can maintain enough attendance and enough tithing to keep the doors open, I will, as a pastor, forego any salary because the needs of the people will outweigh any of my need. As the church wants to, is able to take up love offerings or things of that nature, that's fine. I'm not going to expect it, but I'm not going to refuse it. But as far as accepting a salary, I will not expect one. That will not be a condition of my staying as a pastor. And I encourage other men of God that are out there that are in this situation to go ahead and have a strategy in mind, because you and I, as men of God, are going to have to make a decision. Are we going to serve God, or are we going to serve mammon, money? Now, yes, I know the old argument, we all have to eat. And I know, I understand that. And we all have bills. I understand that too. But we have a higher calling. Now, are we going to trust God to meet our needs? And are we going to live that in front of our congregation, however small it may get? Are we going to live it there? Are we going to show them that we're going to practice what we preach? That is an interesting concept, one that pastors have to reach. It's easy to sit back today when we know that with some reasonable amount of confidence that the next monthly paycheck is going to be coming in, the Christmas bonus is going to be coming in, the power bill is going to get paid, the telephone bill is going to get paid. We know all of this stuff is going to happen, so we can sit here and say, rah, 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 fellow pastor, I'm right there along with you. It's a different animal, a different story, a different scenario when we don't know that. When the power bill doesn't get paid and the lights get turned off. When the telephone bill doesn't get paid and the telephone gets turned off. What happens when the church has to make a decision about whether to pay the power bill for the parsonage or pay the pastor? What happens when they have to make a decision about paying the power bill for the church and paying the pastor? What happens when they have to make a decision about funding the outreach programs, the food kitchens and closets at the church, and paying the pastor? You know, it's going to happen. It's coming. It's coming. Now, I don't know. I can't speak for other pastors that may be listening, other preachers, other missionaries, evangelists, whatever your service may be. I can't speak for you. I can only speak for me in these situations. We have a very dire situation in front of us as a nation, and that will spill over into the church. What happens if the government takes away the tax deductions for churches and religious donations? No more is tithing tax deductible, and because it's not tax deductible, then you lose a portion of the church attendance. And make no mistake, there's a large growing number of people inside the church that come only because what they give is tax deductible. It is a morally accepted and approved way of getting a good attaboy from the community and a nice tax write-off. Plus, you secure yourself a position of leadership in the church community. However, just as soon as the tax write-off is gone and the position of security falls away and there's no attaboys involved, the people fall away. So that's a pretty cold and cruel statement. It's a true statement. It is a true statement. It is a statement of the condition of the people and of a good number of people that darken the door of the church every Sunday. So, in a grid down situation, it will affect the pastorate. And the pastor will have to make a decision. Is he truly a man of God, and is he going to be there to take care of the people of God in a very serious need and time in their lives and in the community? Because people are going to be desperate. People will attend church services more during these times than at any time because they are looking for encouragement. They're looking for comfort. They're looking for some answers, and they know that they can't find them in a 401k any longer. They're going to have to find them from the Word of God. Sadly enough, you won't have very many pastors during this time. You will not have very many. There will be a lot of churches that will lock their doors. Not because they don't particularly have a bank account, but because they can't or they're not able to pay the pastor. So the pastor packs up and walks away and leaves them, and they have no one to lead the church and lead the congregation, so people quit coming. They just lock the doors because of lack of attendance. That's one picture. That is a pretty, what I feel is a pretty realistic look of what some of the church is going to look like during grid down, during a collapse. Now, we've identified a few things. First, we've identified that there's going to be a lapse in pastoral leadership. There's going to be a very bad drop-off in financial support. There's going to be an increased attendance, and there's going to be an increased need of the community for the resources of the church. So those are four things that we have identified that we know are going to be coming, or there's a reasonable perception there, a reasonable thought to believe that this is what's going to happen. So how do we address them? How do we address them? Well, let's talk about resources. The church needs to understand the teachings of the apostles in Acts chapter 1 and verse 8, where they talk about ministering and reaching out and doing missions work, how it needs to start at home. Churches need to be more home mission minded. There needs to be food closets. There need to be clothes closet. Churches, it doesn't matter how small they are, they can always have a food drive where they will bring something occasionally, even if it's just an extra can of green beans or corn or something of that nature, and put it in a cupboard. Then, during difficult times in the community's life, there can be a store to give from, a store to help the church family with, if nothing else. I mean, wouldn't it be nice to have a closet or a spare Sunday school room that's turned into a cupboard, and it is filled with food and paper products and cleaning products and hygiene products, and the members of the church during time of need can come and can take what they need, and not what they want, but what they need in order to make things work, in order to meet needs at their home. Churches are going to be dealing with abandoned children. You say, oh, that doesn't happen anymore. Yes, it does. As a matter of fact, it hasn't been that long ago. I read an article about Greece. Churches were getting overrun by parents who were bringing their children, dropping them off on the doorsteps of the church with a note attached to their lapel that says plainly, I can no longer feed my child. I have lost my job. I have lost my home. Please take care of my child. See they have a warm place to sleep, a safe place to stay, and food to eat. That was a very growing problem in Greece for months. Now, I don't know where it stands right now, but I do know in the summer it was a very, very big problem. Churches were overrun with abandoned children. It wasn't because mom and dad didn't love them. It was because mom and dad did love them. Mom and dad could no longer keep them safe, and they knew it, and they wanted to make sure that they were taken care of, so they left them with the supervision of the church so that they could be taken care of. Unfortunately, churches in America are not set up for this, not anymore. This was something that the original church was set up to do, and this is something that we are supposed to be set up to do. We have passed the ball to the Department of Social Services, which is a big mistake. These type of services have always been arranged through the church. The government has stepped up and they've convinced the people that we can do a better job than the church. Let us handle it through taxpayer money. The church has said, sure, I'll be glad to, and that way we can save money. Well, what's going to happen when the economy can't support the taxpayer-funded system and children wind up at the doorstep of your church? Do you have members that will take them in? Does your church have any idea of what you may do in this situation? Most churches do not. If you would go to your elder board, if you would go to your deacon body, if you would go to any of these things, any of these areas, and if you would ask them these questions, they would just laugh at you in most cases and say that'll never happen in America, and besides, the Department of Social Services takes care of it. The Department of Social Services is one of the biggest jokes there is for a government agency. They are nothing but politically minded and have very ugly motivations to go behind, and agendas that go behind what they do. In essence, my opinion of the Department of Social Services is that they are a bunch of bureaucrats that hide behind children and elderly people in order to accomplish a political goal. That's my opinion of it. Agree or disagree, that's my opinion. It has always been the task of the church to take care of people who could not take care of themselves. And we haven't done it. We have shirked that responsibility. So during a grid down or during a collapse situation, you will see that happening in America. That's why you will see a lot of churches begin to fail, because the people that attend the churches are going to be asked to step up and be a church, and the attitude is going to be, hey, if there's work involved in it, I don't want no part of it. In other words, you're going to see the beginning of a great falling away, much greater than it is now. Because if there people are going to have the attitude, if there is nothing in it for me, and it's always asking something from me, then I don't want any part of it. That's going to be the attitude in a lot of areas. So you're going to have buildings that are going to be sitting vacant. Some churches will experience an increase in attendance and an increase in membership, because as some of these churches close their doors, there will be some legitimate, caring, compassionate people that will insist on attending church somewhere and being part of the solution. And they're going to find like-minded believers to associate with. That's going to be the beauty of the church during this time. It will, on an outward perception, be failing because you will see a lot of doors that will be chained closed and a lot of buildings that will no longer be meeting. But at the same time, you will actually see the church grow if you look at it from within. You will see a lot of pastors that did not need to be in a pulpit to begin with be leaving and be running and shirking their responsibilities. And you will see a lot of people that before would never have their resume looked at by a church that will be stepping up just because God has put them in a position to be a pastor. Not because they're getting paid, not because they've met with some committee, not because they've been a vote, but because God has put it in their life for them to step up and do what is needed. You see, it has always been the intent of the Lord for pastors and leaders to be called of God, not called of people. The idea of a pulpit committee is a good idea if it's done biblically. And it's one that could be very successful as long as it's done biblically. So during a collapse situation, you're going to see people being called to step up that you never thought would be there. You're going to people, well, hey, I remember when he behaved this way. I remember when he was in prison. Hey, I remember when him and his wife split up and he remarried. And, you know, I remember this about him or that about him. And, you know, God doesn't call the trained. God trains the called. God has always used the most unlikely people on the face of the earth to accomplish his wishes and his goals. And during an economic collapse, times will be no different. So, what are you going to be looking for from the church? What, are you going to be part of the church that's going to be reaching out to people? Are you going to be part of the church that will be reaching out to the abandoned children and the elderly people? The widows, indeed, who have no family that will take care of them? They may have family, but what about the ones that have no family that will take care of them? The churches will see an increase in these people. What happens when the government can no longer afford to pay the nursing homes? Have you ever thought about that? Have you ever thought about the numbers, the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of elderly people that are sitting in nursing homes today and that are being kept there because of tax dollars? And what happens if those tax dollars no longer exist? That should scare you, because a lot of those folks, frankly, they're in there because their families don't want to be bothered with them. And when the nursing home picks up the telephone and makes the call and says, "Excuse me, sir, excuse me, ma'am, we're losing funding and your parents' care is going to be cut. You're going to have to come and get them." What if no one shows? What if they have to take the 70, 80-year-old and put them on the street because no one is going to pay to take care of them? No one's going to come and get them and take them home. It's going to come back to the church. Is the church going to be willing to step up to that call? Are you going to be willing to step up to that in some way, shape, form, or fashion? You say, well, it isn't my problem. They may not be your children. They may not be your parents. They may not be your grandparents. They may be of no blood kin to you. But yes, it is your problem. It's going to be all of society's problem. People are going to die needlessly during this collapse. There will be people who will go without medicine and will die because they go without medicine. There will be people who will go without medical treatment because they cannot afford it, just because the medical treatment's available. Are you going to be part of the problem or part of the solution? I'm not trying to browbeat you. I'm not trying to make you feel guilty. I'm not trying to cause you problems or grief or anything like that. I am just trying to give you a perspective of humanity during a collapse situation. We all know about beans, bullets, and Band-Aids. We all know about and have heard about the experts talk about perimeter security and food preparation and food storage and first aid and taking care of mom and dad, the children and the grandchildren, and everyone looking after their own. But what about the humanity, the humanitarian side of this when it comes to the people who can't take care of themselves? Those people who own the nursing homes are not going to keep people free of their own good heart and good nature. It's a business to them. If they're not getting paid to do it, they're not going to do it. Look around at healthcare in general. The number of people who go into healthcare because they care about people is dropping exponentially. I'm not saying there's not any out there, because I know there are, but the numbers are dropping. Most people that are going into healthcare-related fields are going into those fields strictly because of the money. And when there is no money, there is no worker. So what about the humanitarian side of a collapse? Yes, that's why I picked on the face of the church, because it will be the face of the church, it will be the real church that has to step up. There will be the religious crowd will cut and run. There is a religious crowd out there in all denominations, mine included, that are there because there's something in it for them. So you can be religious very easily. Religion has its own language and its own culture. If you want to be religious, all you have to do is learn the language. That's all you have to do. When you learn the language, then you need to learn the culture and the behavioral skills. When you learn those two things, you'll fit right in. On the outside, nobody will know there's any difference between you and the real thing. The real thing is a born-again Christian. The real thing is someone who not only talks the talk, but walks the walk. The people who are merely religious are going to walk away because they're not going to get their hands dirty with the collapse of the world. They're not going to risk anything during a collapse time. As a matter of fact, they're going to cut and run, they're going to back up, they're going to lock their doors, and they're going to take care of themselves and only themselves. So, some of you may be thinking, Pastor, what are you saying, that we just open up the doors? No, you have to be sensible. You have to be practical. You have to be realistic in every way that you handle it. There's a right way to handle it where everyone is safe and secure. Because what you've got to be cautious of are shysters. And make no mistake, there's going to be people that have plenty, and they're going to come to churches, and they're going to put on a face just to try to get more so that they can hoard back. Just like today, that happens in every town in America today. There's somebody that's trying to take advantage of a church. Someone who they are going to say they don't have any groceries, they don't have any rent money, they don't have any power bill money, they want some party money, they want to go to Cousin Joe's football Sunday afternoon party, but they're going to have to bring their own beer, so they're going to go to the church, and they're going to tell a story. They're going to make up some scam to get money from the church so they can go spend it on beer so that they can go to the Cousin Joe's football party on Sunday and be a part. It happens every Sunday. The only thing is, right now, if people get turned down for that, they typically don't get violent. What's going to happen when someone comes to a church and they're trying to scam the church, and the church tells them no, and then they want to get violent? You're going to have to be prepared for that. The church is going to have to be prepared for it. Right now, the church is going through a lot of life with its head buried in the sand. And that's a shame. That is really, really sad, because we are going through the motions in church with our eyes closed. We're ignorant of what goes on in the world around us. Christianity, during a collapse situation, will go through a purification process, but it will also go through a reality check. Being a pastor will once again become dangerous. Being a church leader will once again become dangerous. Being a church member will become dangerous in America. People will try to rob and steal, intimidate, frighten. I wonder how many pastors out there today are prepared to defend their church and their congregation. How many of you are out there, you enjoy carrying the title of a shepherd for your congregation? Makes you feel all dignified, don't it? Well, what happens when you have to assume the role of a shepherd and actually protect your flock? Are you willing to do that? Are you willing to do what is necessary to provide for the physical safety of the people in your congregation? If you're attending a church, do you have that kind of confidence in your pastor? Do you believe that your pastor will be there when a collapse starts? If you had to pull him into a conference room and you had to say, look, preacher, we love you. We don't have any problem with what you preach, the way you preach it. No problem at all with it. Listen, we can't afford to pay you. Do you have confidence that your pastor would still be there? Would he be willing to find alternate ways of making a living and still be your pastor? He may have to say, well, okay, I'll try to find a job, and I'll take care of me and my family the best way that I can, and I'll do the best I can with the church in the meantime, and together we'll just move on. Are you willing to pick up your end of the deal? Because there are a lot of churches today that view the office of pastor as a paid employee of the church. And if you are one of these people, you're wrong. The pastor is not and should never be considered a paid employee of the church. The pastor should be considered God's man put in your congregation to lead you spiritually. And because he is there to lead you spiritually, you are taking care of his needs. So, when the world falls apart, when the economy collapses, when society shows its animal side, do you have confidence that your pastor is going to stay? If not, you better do some serious thinking about whether you're in the right church, whether you're actually in a church, or whether you're just in a Sunday morning social club. And if you do believe that your pastor would be there and your leadership is going to stay, ask yourself this question: are you willing to step up and do your part? How much of what you have are you willing to give to the church in order to make sure the church can function and do what God has called it to do? If your church needs protecting, if you would have to actually put armed guards at your church to prevent looting and stealing and vandalism, are you willing to pick up a gun and protect the property that you're there to worship in? You say, well, that's not church. We're supposed to live by faith. Yes, we are supposed to live by faith, but we have to understand God is not going to do for us what he has already prepared us to do for ourselves. Look at Luke chapter 22 and verse 36. I'm not going to get into explaining that. I'm just going to tell you, go there and look and read it. And if you don't understand it or you need to discuss it, email me, prepperspastor@frontier.com. If you have comments or questions about today's show or any show previously, prepperspastor@frontier.com. Social and financial collapse takes many, many different angles and avenues. And we don't hear the humanitarian side of it talked about. We don't hear the pastoral side, the church side of it talked about. We just take for granted that because it's always been here, or that, hey, the pastor, well, hey, the preacher has to be there. He don't have a choice. Yeah, he does have a choice. He can pack his bags and he can walk away just like you can pack your bags and walk away from your job anytime you want to. If he's truly called of God, he will have to deal with the convictions that come from it. But if he isn't called of God, if it is nothing more than a job to him, he will walk away with no problem, with no conscience, no convictions, none of that. It won't bother him at all, and he'll just keep on keeping on. Are you really willing, as a church member, as a Christian? God's going to expect some very serious things from his church. The church will be put in a very, very bold predicament. We will be asked to take care of people that we have never met. The church will be asked to meet in places it has never met. How would you feel about the church meeting in your home? How would you feel about a handful of people coming to your house once a week or once every other week and meeting and singing hymns, with or without music, doing Bible study, and just having Christian fellowship because the church had to close its doors? It may get to that. You see, that's what the first church was in the first century. In the book of Acts, when we read of the day of Pentecost and the birth of the church, and we read of the 3,000 souls that were saved, and the miracles and everything of that nature, but as afterwards, people started meeting in homes until houses of worship were built, etc., etc. when there's no money to keep churches open, people are still going to be meeting. They're just going to be meeting in homes. Say, now, wait a minute. I like going to church and all of that, but I'm not so sure I want the church crowd in my house. I mean, after all, I'm going to have to take care of my family, and there's going to be looting and rioting and all that, and here I am bringing strangers in, and people are going to see everything that I've got and what I do have and don't have. That's right. That's right. So I ask you again, do you trust God and God's people enough to do that? If you do have a pastor that's willing to continue to step up and take the lead, are you going to trust him enough to do that? Folks, Christianity will look different. Christianity will actually look like Christianity during a collapse situation. It won't be churchy. It won't be religious. There won't be big cathedrals with pipe organs and air-conditioned buildings and climate-controlled this and climate-controlled that. There won't be any big programs that are meeting over here or over there. You'll consider yourself fortunate if you've got your own personal Bible to bring to church. God will use these things to touch hearts of people. Again, I'll tell you, during a collapse, there will be a difference. There will be a difference between organized religion and heartfelt Christianity. Now, which side of that coin are you on? Which side will you be found on? Are you going to start thinking about, and are you able to start thinking about how you're going to be able to contribute to the help of others? You may be at the very beginning of prepping. You may not have enough money to do it, to do it the way you want it done for your family, and you may be struggling as it is, let alone without me putting this burden on you about orphan children and elderly people and all of this other stuff. So don't overwhelm me, Pastor. I'm not trying to overwhelm anyone. What I do want you to understand is that these needs are going to be there. And if you don't understand them now and start putting into practice some type of strategy to deal with them, if you think it's overwhelming now with just the thought of it, what is it going to be like when you're really faced with it? Take a moment and think about that. Let that really sink in. People are going to be dying. People are going to be starving. People are going to be cold, possibly freezing. Children are going to be begging. Elderly people will be crying and begging. And while you see the need there, are you even going to be part of some? You may not be able to save anyone by yourself, but are you going to be part of saving someone, or are you going to turn and walk away? Some people will die. There's nothing that no one will be able to do about that. But there will be some that will die that don't have to. There will be people that will walk away that can offer help. The face of Christianity in a collapse situation is going to be a full-blown missions group. It will be the epitome of the first church. It will be a missions center. There will be praying and Bible reading and study and praise songs and worship and all of that will be there, but it will also be a place for Missions Central. Fellowship halls will be converted into soup kitchens and homeless shelters. Whole churches that are abandoned may be turned into mission centers to take care of as many people as possible. Pastors may actually have to step up and take on the role of being a shepherd and physically defend their congregation and their people from looters and hoarders and murderers and thieves. Church members may have to actually step up and do more than just throw a few dollars in an offering plate every once in a while and drive to church and say, I've done my part, I showed up today. Christianity will become service. Exactly what it's always been intended to be. Service of one human being to another human being. Service of an individual who has given themselves over to be the hands and the feet of Jesus extended to the world. Nobody's asking you to give away the farm. Nobody's telling you you're going to have to. Nobody's telling you you're going to have to take from your family to give to someone else. What I am telling you is, picture of Christianity in a grid-down situation is going to be as different as night and day to what we're experiencing today. And you had better give it some very serious thought, because it is coming. It is coming, and there's nothing the government's going to do to stop it. There is nothing Wall Street can do to stop it. There is nothing the Congress can do to stop it. It's coming. It may be 1 week away. It may be 1 month away. It may be 1 year. It may be 10 years. It may be longer. I don't know. But the signs of the times show that it's coming. And when it comes, yes, there will be a change in the face of what America looks like, but more so, there will be a definite change in the face of what Christianity looks like. I hope this has given you something to think about. Next week, we will do our Christmas broadcast. I hope you'll come back. I hope you'll be here for that. We will plan on Christmas. We will talk about Christmas. And think about 2013 with Soul Survivor Radio. Give me some direction from you on things you would like to hear. If you have guests in mind that you would like to hear, give me names and contact information. If you would like to be a guest on Soul Survivor Radio and talk about prepping, talk about Christianity, talk about the face of Christians and the place of Christians in prepping, drop me an email. prepperspastor@frontier.com. Our time has came and gone this week. My friends, I hope to meet you here again next week. God bless you is my prayer.
Are you sick and tired of having your First Amendment harassed or censored on Facebook? Use no more, as we now have a new alternative to Facebook. It's called Awareness Act. Awareness Act is a social network designed for patriots, to be used by patriots, and is ran by patriots. Stand up and help in the fight to protect your constitutional rights. Patriots can create pages, blogs, videos, documents, articles, and so much more. We even have a unique news feed system that allows you to share, read, or connect with any patriot on Awareness Act. We are a dedicated tool for patriots to use against the tyranny our Constitution is facing. So if you're tired of having your rights infringed upon, come check us out at www.awarenessact.com. Again, that is www.awarenessact.com, the social network for patriots, not potatoes.
Whether you take me for the fool, I know that I can be. Whether you see me eye to eye.
The new Be Prepared for Christmas package from Sun Ovens contains everything you need to harness the power of the sun for cooking, water, and dehydrating. the perfect gift for the preppers or outdoor enthusiast on your shopping list. A sun oven uses the sun's power to bake, boil, or steam food, heat water for purification or personal hygiene, or solar dehydrate. When you use the sun's power on sunny days, you preserve your fuel storage for rainy days. Sun-baked foods retain moisture, have less shrinkage, and do not burn. Sun-baked roasts are tastier and more succulent, and sun-baked bread has unparalleled taste and texture. The new Be Prepared for Christmas package lets you roast an 18-pound turkey. For the past 26 years, Sun Ovens has been proudly made in the U.S., are durable, and have a long life and come with a 100% satisfaction guarantee. Don't be fooled by cheap imitations. For a discount coupon, visit sunoven.com/podcast. That's sunoven.com/podcast.
This is KPRN-DB, broadcasting worldwide from Southeast Oklahoma, USA to parts unknown.